So this is Baruch Fleischman of the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and the picture you see before you is really a picture of my computer screen. And I'm working on getting my logo. We have a whole big, front page that I want to get up. Give me a second. I think I can find it. Hold on. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing, but this is just a piece of our webpage showing you the concept of learning Zohar every day. So from there, I'm just experimenting with different kinds of looks. I don't know exactly what I got here. I'm over here on I can bring that up, and here we are on the Zohar. This is Parshas Shemini, first day. Today is a day of Chesed. Let's see what the Rav has to say to us. This is not the Rav, this is the Zohar itself. This is Rebbe Shimon. V'hi b'yom hashmini, the Zohar takes the first words, and it's Rabbi Yitzchak Pasuk. Rabbi Yitzchak began to speak. Zohar said, Baram yachad kochvei bochar, so let them sing together the song of the stars of the morning, v'yiriyah kol b'nei Elohim. And all the children of Elohim, they should be singing, they should be shouting out. So it says, Zachayin indon yisrael the kudsha barichu yehiv lon the rise of Kadisha. Happy is the portion of the Jewish people that the Kodesh Baruch Hu has given us the Torah. Chesed the Kula, it's the joy of everything. He's a Chesed the Kudsha barichu, it's the joy of the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Now we said before that the Kodesh Baruch Hu really means the panemius of the parsha that the parts of that we're talking about. What's the dimension inside of it? And that is, a lot of times it's Kodesh Baruch Hu. Usually it refers to their Anpin, because that's the most obvious place, is their Anpin relating to his Nukva. But here we have other ways. It also comes from Bina in different places. We'll see it. But Tal Yusidilay, it's really the joy here, the celebration. And there will be joy and celebration every day. For Raisa the whole Torah. Chad Shema Kaddish Yichud Gujubarichu. The whole Torah is one long name of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Over Raisa Isbre Alma, and using those names, the Torah itself, the world is created. Dechsev is written like this: Vehye Etzlo Amon, and I will be by him, by it, as an Amon. Now I translated Amon as a faithful shepherd. But he says, the Matrix says that the normal translation is different. Al tikre amon elo uman. Uman is Lashon craftsman, one who puts things together. So let's see a little bit more. And it says, V'oraisa, the Torah, it says, Isbrei barnash, the Torah also created man through the Torah. This is the meaning of this pasuk. V'yom Elokim na'ase Adam. So Elokim says, let's make man, na'ase Adam. Ama Kudsha Barichu Raisa, so now Kodesh Baruch Hu, that is the Panemius that's speaking to the Torah. This is somewhere in a deep Chochmah somewhere. But Eina Lemidre Adam, we have to create the man. Ama Kamei Hai Bar Nash Zamin Lemechete Argozakamach. But the Torah says to Kodesh Baruch Hu, he said, but don't you know that this man is going to mess up? He's going to sin. And he's going to do all the wrong things, and he's going to make you angry. If it's not going to be for the fact that you're going to really have tremendous patience with him. And if you don't, then how could it be possible that the world would be able to sustain itself? Amal also, Kodesh Baruch Hu says to the Torah, it's you and me. Wait a minute. You and me together. We're going to be able to establish man, and we'll be able to establish the world. The whole love, the Meganda is Erika Paim, and it's because it's not for nothing that it's called that I am called Erika Paim. Rabbi Chia, now coming over this, and the Matagal explained that this is a small argument. Here we're talking about Abba Ve'ima creating man. He says, Rabbi Chia says, it's the two different types of Torah, the two different paths of the Torah. I'm looking for the right word. It's the paths. At any rate, he says it's those. It's the Torah, the written Torah, and the oral Torah. This is the meaning of this pasuk. Let man be made in our tselem, which is like a Lashon sail, a little bit like a shadow. Look at the Musenu in our image. Actually, Tzelem doesn't mean the shadow over here. It's the Tzadik, the Tzelem, Alama, the Tzelem, and the Mem, the Tzelem, and it really refers to lights of the Oros from up above that are coming to Zeranpin, Kedibusenu, and that's the place where it's going to ultimately go to Kedemus. It's going to say that it's Lashon Nukva de Zeranpin. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi B'chocha, Rabbi Yossi says you can understand the process of creation of man from here. As Asher Kavar Asa Uhu. So he said, because of what I have already made. So he says, let's take a look at this word Asa Uhu. If you take the word, you said you actually make it Asa Uhu Vadai, because that's what the Zohar says. So let's take the word Asa Uhu. So you said Asu Hu, Hevav. Hevav made it. What is Hevav? Hevav is Malchus and Zeranpin inside of her. Asa Uhu Vadai. They're the ones that made it. Vadal Hu Tzelem Udemos. That's the real use of the idea of Tzelem Demos. One refers to Zeranpin, the other refers to Malchus. Tzelem B'Dechura, the Tzelem goes with the male, with the Demos B'Nukva, Va'alda Sherusa Daraisa base, and this is the reason why the Torah begins with the letter base. Because it wasn't made by one aspect of Hashem, but in the Torah the man himself was made in such a way that he would be opposites, male and female. So we'll go on to that. So this is explained in other places. There are other explanations, trust me, on this as well. Let's go over here, and there was a little thing that I wanted to say, that those of us who are living and were married, you realize that the nature of marriage is that you're putting two people who do not think together, but they're mated. They don't think the same way. Women and men are different, and that's what he's saying. But creation comes by the blending of two things that by themselves are totally different, but there's an attraction between them and puts them together. And when that happens, that is when creation forms. Let's see what the Matuk says. V'hi b'yom hashmini. So in order to explain this, Rabbi Yitzchak began to speak, and he said like this, L'boer masha amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Iyuv. So this is a part of Sefer Iyuv. Kodesh Baruch Hu, which means the Panemius of spirituality, spoke to Eva, Eifo Hayisa. And that voice says to Eifo, it says to, as if it's possible to say, it says to Job, Hizachabaran Yachad Kokfe Boker. He says they were all singing together, Be'ez Yeranadach Yachad Kol Kofe Boker. At the time that the constellations of the heavens that meet in the morning were all singing. Heim Ma'arechas HaShemayim, he says these are the constellations of heaven. Vayiriya Kol B'nei Elohim. V'heim HaMalachim HaMarim, these are shouting angels. Yiriya Lishmi, they were shouting out in my name, or for my name. They're seeking me. Kolomer V'im HaYiso Sham. So it means to say that the Kodesh Baruch Hu says that you, if you would have been there, Sham, Ra'isa, you would have seen Shakulam, that is, all the heavens, all the forces, all the noise, everything that comes out of the world, all the sounds, Nechnayim Li, they all bow down to me. V'ol Morai Aleichem, and the yoke of my fear is upon them. He says, so he comes and he says like this. Now let me see if I don't know if I can get this lower. So it's a little glary there. Trying to decrease the glare. That's what I'm trying to do. So he says, V'hikdim v'amad zakayim inun Yisrael. So now this is a phrase that we see quite often in the Zohar. It's a beautiful sound anyway. He says, Zakayim inun Yisrael the kutra barich Yehuv lo n'raisa kadisha. Happy is the person of the Jewish people that the Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah. So then, but he adds, the Makhluk adds over here, Mechochma al yoynach hanikras Kodesh. So he gave us the Torah from a place beyond our ken, beyond our ability to be able to understand this place of upper Chochmah. Hanikra Kodesh, which the Kodesh I learned from a very good source. The word Kodesh means separate, something not like us, something away. He said, the joy of everything, because Bina is where the manifestation of joy comes. So he's so olam asimcha, because Bina is the secret of the world of joy. So also Kodesh Baruch Hu, speaking in terms of Zeranpin, he says that this is all the tremendous joy there. Vatal Yusu today, in other words, that the yichud that's coming about through this, and the praise that comes from it, Vatal Yusu today, the Malchus, and ultimately the expression of this joy reaches the Malchus. The Torah itself says, and I will be celebrating every single day the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Torah itself, Kul Hi Shem Echad Kadosh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Torah itself, the whole thing, let's remember, is one whole name. The entire, every single letter, every single word is actually part of the name of the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Of Araisa Isbrei Alma, and that combinations of letters, V'Torah Nivra Ha'olim, so he means to say what? Kolomar. There are 22 letters, basic letters in the Hebrew alphabet. B'Kaf Beis Osis HaTorah, and these letters are those the ones we find in the Torah. Shebabina, they're found in Bina. Shebechem Kolulim Kolonim Soim, because in those letters, all reality is manifest. Now, his words are Shebechem, that in are incorporated everything that is to be found. And I have this little drush that I want to say. So he said, Dersiv Ekye Etzlo Amun, and I will be by him as Amun. Now, what does Amun mean? Shebirusha Rapasha, the simple meaning of this Hu Lashon Gidul. I will be an agent to make them grow. That I grew by this Amun. But the Zohar says it's a wrong translation. The Amr al Tikre Amun. There's another way to look at it. Don't call it Amun. I would call it Umun. That it was in fact crafted, something to put together. Now I wanted to give you an idea of what I think is part of craft. Let's just take any words. This word nichnoim, for example. Now you know these are black lines, curves and lines that are printed on a white piece of paper. So you said without the white you wouldn't see them, because they'd be in any other color, they'd be obscured. So the white actually is the concept of the pure whiteness of Eric Anpen, or the pure whiteness that could come from that direction that comes now and shines from behind into the nun, the chaf, the nun, the ayin, and the yud, and the mem sofit here. It shines into them, and it makes a different impression as it's coming towards us. That's the secret of these combinations of letters. So Raisa Isbrei Barnash. Now the Torah is also used to create man. By making the combination of letters in Bina, as I just described, is that the white from behind shines through the blackness of the letters. This is what is written. The Yomer Elokim Shuhu Bina. So Elohim, in this case, the word this word means refers to Bina, because Elokim Lashon Dinim, really. There we go. And Amr Elohim Shuhu Bina, Amr L'Chochma Naase Adam. So Bina, now this is the concept of the female, and this is really what makes the world go round, is needy. He says Amra L'Chochma Naase Adam. So Bina, as if it was possible to say, says to the male aspect, we have to make some children. We have to create Adam. L'chein kazev b'lashon rabin. So that's the concept that it's written in plural, that they make it. Ki ima bara es Adam. It is ima that in fact gave birth to man. B'koach shekab l'chem Abba, from the power or the energy that she gets from Abba. Abba is Chochma. So Chochma into Bina, we learn about this every day more or less in the Sefer Tzniuta. We see it different combinations. Amagud Jabarichu, the Charai, says the Kodesh Baruch Hu, that is the Benimius said to the Torah. Ba'ina the Mibra Adam. So since we see that the Nukva, the female aspect, feels empty, and as a result of that she is crying out, and she wants a child. She wants to be she has a womb full, so that she can go through motherhood and bring forth life. So therefore it goes up the ladder. That plea goes up the ladder, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and says to the Torah, we got to create man now, because that's really what the plea is for. So he says, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Habina, Ala Torah She'ha-Chochma, so the Bina says to the Torah, which represents Chochma. Ani wrote to the V'ro Adam, I want to create man. But the Chochma says to her, Amra HaTorah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hi bar nash zamen mechete the argazakamach. So he's saying that Bina speaks to Chochmah. Chochmah then speaks to what is beyond him. So he says that this man is going to sin, he's going to cause great anger before you. That is the 7 spheros that you have in your presence. He's going to mess them up. If it's not really going to have a tremendous amount of patience before you. How would it be possible if you're not going to have tremendous patience with this man? Then the world will never stop, but will never last. How can the world be established? So the Kodesh Baruch Hu then says that the Torah, this is how it's going to work. Ana va'at. It's going to be you and me. This is Chochmah Bina. Nokim le ba'alma. We will stand the man in the world. The whole love, the Magona is Karena Erikapayim. It's for nothing. It's not for nothing that I'm called patience. Ki lo b'chinam ane nikra ak Erikapayim. Ratzon aloma the matuk adds. It means to say, the Torah which represents Chochmah. It's the inspiration, the ultimate knowledge in which everything is contained. It will teach us the right way. It'll teach us the way of the Torah Shebechsav and the way of the Torah Shebal Peh. We will hear all of this Torah, and it will show us how to live. Let's say you sin. Then Bina will come into play. That's an aspect of this combination of Abba Ve'ima, and she will accept you. And she will take you back into her womb, so to speak, or into her bosom. I like that better. When you come back in tshuva. Nimsa, so it comes like this. That Chochmah Bina, Mekaimim as Adam Ba'olam, that the two of them are the ones that establish man in the world. This is where the origin of it is. This is how it begins. Then the Zohar says like this, Rebbe Kia Polig, he argues with this. Rebbe Yitzchak, and he holds like this. It's closer to us where our sustenance comes from. And that is from Zohar V'Nok, in other words, they're Anfen and Malchus. As Adam, and this is why we had this concept. There's a written Torah, Shehu Zer Anpin. The Torah Shabal Peh, Shehu Malchus, and there's another kind of Torah, that is the Torah which is oral. So these are the what actually stands a person in the world, that he has this Torah wrapped around himself. This is what it means. So this, going back to our original story. Bina asks Chochmah, as if it's possible to say, Na'asa Adam, let's make this man so he wants to say that those two are the ones that formed it up together. Vikiyuma said that's true. They did form up this idea because this is the origin of opposites, the males and females. Remember, no matter how difficult it may be to live with your opposite, somebody who doesn't think like you, but on the other hand, all goodness comes from that relationship. So the ability to be able to maintain it, the ability to be able to see the godliness in it, that's an asset. That's something you have to work on. So to be able to establish it, that will be in our image. So Zer Anpin is called the shade or the shadow of Chochmah. Now Tzelem, as I said before, is a different word. It really means the Tzadid Tzelem, the Lamed Tzelem, and the Mem Tzelem. These are all aspects of light that come into Zer Anpin from Chochmah. But also Malchus, that it's Malchus and it's Zer Anpin and Malchus. Shahid the Mosabina, which is Malchus, is another word for Demos, is another word for Malchus. Finishing up, Rabbi Yossi Alma, Rabbi Chochmah says, let's learn this from here. Bekan Nishma Shazun Bara Es Adam. So now he's changed it slightly. He says that it's actually Zun, because Rabbi Chia said it's Zun that sustains man. Here he says it's actually Zun that creates the man. This is a pasuk he quotes over here in Koheles. He says, tell me about the man who follows after the king. Esa Asher Kavar Asauhu, and then the pasuk goes on, that which has already been made. So he says, Shepirusha Asuhu Vadai, so that they made it. So he says further, let's break down the letters. Asuhu is really two words. Asu, who. Hu, he, refers to Malchus. U, the Vav, refers to Zer Anpin. Also, who is the one that made him. Vadai, that's for sure. Pirush Asauhu Beloshin Rabim. So he said, the Notricon, so really figure it out. He says, Asa Vav K. Vav K made it. Shehem Zun, which are Zun. Mefarish V'do Hu Tzalim V'Demos. This is the use of the word Salam and Demos. B'zecha B'Tzalim V'Demos. Shnechem Baro Esa Adam, that the both of them created the man together. Ki Tzalim V'Dechura, because Salam goes with the concept of the male. The most Benukva, and the most goes with the concept of the female. He said the most Ba'alchus, so he said Salam B'Zah, the most B'Malchus. Ba'alda Sherusuda Raisa is the base. So this is a little chiddush that he says, that this is how you understand that the first letter of the Torah, remember we're saying that letters actually represent a channel or a hismatus, a diminishing of the light that is behind it, but it makes a special formation as it comes towards the lower worlds. And so here we say the Sherusa derises with a base. Why? The Remez, in order to give you a hint to the fact that Zun, about Zun, Sha'al Yadim, that through them, Nivra Adam, that's how the man was created. This has been discussed and discussed and discussed. And this is Baruch Fleischman. I'm at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel here on the first day of Parshas Shemini, Chesed.